Hello, welcome to the Positive Posting Conversation, the show about how to have a better relationship with your dog and cat. I'm Zazie Todd, author of the books Bark, Wag and Purr, and creator of companion animal psychology blog. My co-host, Christy Benson, is a dog trainer and anthropologist, and she also works at the Academy for Dog Trainers. We can't give advice on your pet, so if you have concerns, see your dog trainer, cat behaviourist, or veterinarian as appropriate. Thanks for joining us today. And I have one last question for you, which is, what gives you hope for the dog-human relationship?
Dogs. I have so many answers to that. And, we covered some of them, this change in perspective and this new compassion and this science, us using really good science to understand our dogs and drop out of the sort of humans as dominant primates model. But honestly, it's just dogs they just never stop amazing me. They just never, ever, ever stop. I just posted on Facebook about a project that a friend of mine, Melissa McCune-McGrath, I think she might be listening.
She's here.
has been a part of teaching dogs to find the eggs of the spotted lanternfly, which is incredibly devastating invasive insect. I mean, they just never, ever stop giving and giving and giving. So, dogs.
That was Patricia McConnell PhD, author of The Education of Will and The Other End of the Leash, speaking at Barkfest, the book festival for animal lovers, in September 2024. A few years ago, I watched an online event with the writer Amin Maalouf. He's a member of the Academie Francaise and the author of novels including Samarkand and The Rock of Tanios. In the interview, he said, and I quote, "I think the duty of a writer is to have lucidity and hope. If you spread despair, it's best not to speak at all." I actually wrote a piece for Psych Today based around that answer and the importance of hope in dog training and animal behaviour. So at Barkfest, we asked every writer what brings them hope for the human-animal bond. These are their answers. Next up is Jean Donaldson, author of Culture Clash. But I want to ask, what gives you hope for the dog-human relationship?
I thought a lot about this, and I keep coming back to the demand and the hunger out there for Zazie, for books like yours, where the central idea is happiness of dogs and cats. And the new book that you're about to launch, what we're here for, is their feeling of safety in the world. Nobody should have to live with fear. Way back in the day, the books were all about how to control your dog. It's obedience, basically oppress them. People don't want that anymore, which is, oh my gosh, what a great sign. They want their dogs to have good lives. They want their dogs to, of course, to help them fit into our world rather than to just be under our thumbs.
Next up is Marc Bekoff, myself, and Kat Warren, with the question posed by my co-host, Christy Benson. Marc is, of course, the author of The Emotional Lives of Animals. A leading scientist, explores animal joy, sorrow, empathy, and why they matter, as well as Dogs Demystified, an A to Z guide to all things canine. I'm the author of WAG, The Science of Making Your Dog Happy, and Bark, The Science of Helping Your Anxious, Fearful, or Reactive Dog. And Kat Warren is the author of What the Dog Knows, Scent, Science, and the Amazing Ways Dogs Perceive the World, which is also available as a Young Readers edition.
Perfect. So we have a plenary question that we're going to ask everyone. So I will start with Zazie. So what brings you hope for the dog-human relationship?
How many people want to learn more about their dogs and how to help their dogs? And in fact, all the people who've come and signed up for Barkfest and all of the amazing authors who are taking part in it, because everybody is so keen to learn, to hear everybody talk. And it's just fantastic. It brings me a lot of hope.
Perfect. Marc, what brings...
Zazie hit it. All the questions that come into me that over the years have become much more sophisticated. Which means that at least I think more and more people are learning more and more about dogs. And what gives me hope is when I ask people a question about their dogs and they say they don't know, because I wrote an essay called "The More I Know, the More I Say I Don't Know." And so it's not meant to be off-putting that it's so complex. I mean, it is more complex than a lot of people make it out to be, but I love that more and more people are asking ethological questions, if you will. So I just say, go to a dog park, pull out your iPhone or whatever thing you carry, and they take videos, they analyze them, and they send them to me. And I love it. And I have a whole lot of people looking at scent marking patterns and humping and mounting patterns, because you're not going to get a federal grant to study humping and mounting. But really, that's what gives me hope, is how many people, I mean, because of all the work that you all do, you know, and other participants in this series are putting it out to the public, and people are getting keenly interested. And the bottom line for me is that the more you know, the better that will be, if you will, the dog-human relationship. So that I love that.
I love that too. And I honestly think that your generosity of spirit with answering questions for people, it does such a service for ethology as a discipline, to be honest. So Kat, what brings you hope?
Well, I mean, I can only second what Zazie and Marc said. And I see it actually every day sometimes when we're just driving, and more when I see a person walking with a dog, you can actually see the relationship between them. And it feels as though, now remember, it's a small portion of the whole dog population, but I actually can see the progress in people when they're going out with their dogs. They are more connected, or they are on harness, or the dogs are being allowed to sniff and explore a little bit. So all of those things. And then one final thing is that this science is really interesting, and we are starting to learn. And dog training is actually getting better at that sort of upper end. Ade Schoen, who's a marvelous trainer in the Netherlands and has done a ton of work. She and I love this quote. She said sometimes that she can almost see a dog thinking, "Is that all you want me to do? I can do so much more." Right? And I think that's really hopeful.
Yeah.
I love it. Thank you guys, all of you.
This is Alexis Devine, author of I Am Bunny, How a Talking Dog Taught Me Everything I Need to Know About Being Human, and Teresa J. Ryan, author of Puppy in the Wild, A Lost Dog, 1,500 Acres of Wilderness, and the Dogged Determination That Brought Her Home. I also would like to ask each of you, what gives you hope for the dog-human relationship? And this time I'll start with you, please, Alexis.
I mean, every time I meet a new dog, I feel hopeful because I learned something new. You know, I feel like part of being human is just learning and growing, and dogs have become such a special and integral part of my life that I now can't stop learning. It's all I want to do. And so I'm hopeful that through my platform, I can help to educate and encourage people to have a little bit more empathy and to do independent research about how we can best support non-humans as captive animals.
You definitely can do that. You are doing that. That's great. Thank you. And Teresa, what gives you hope for the dog-human relationship?
I think stuff like this gives me hope for the dog-human relationship, to just know that, you know, people are caring more and more about dogs, caring about learning about dogs and treating dogs as dogs. And to give a shout out to your book, Zazie, reading it really helped me with Poppy, because Poppy's a very a nervous kind of dog. She loves to just be home. She loves to just be with her people and her and I think we were a little bit like, okay, how do we help her get over this? How do we help her get over this? Instead of what Alexis just said, like, and what you say in the book too, like, we got to just let her be her. And if this is this is what she's comfortable with, then this is what she's comfortable with, you know? And I'm probably not a good influence on her because I'm not comfortable with crowds either. So I'm like, I get it. Let's stay home. And yeah. So I think just I look back even to like when I was a kid. I've always been a dog lover, but the way our dogs were treated then is very different than the way they're treated now, just in that time frame okay, that's 50 years, but it's just in that time frame. I think we've learned so much more about dogs, and we treat them so much better. Although rescue is still, our shelter system is still such a huge problem. But I have hope. I have hope.
Next, we have Lily Chin, author of Kitty Language, an illustrated guide to understanding your cat. Michael Delgado, author of Play with Your Cat, the essential guide to interactive play for a happier, healthier feline, and Lucy Hoyle, author of The Book Your Cat Wishes You Would Read. All of these books, they're books that every cat guardian should get, and they are very different, but they're so full of useful advice and illustrations. They give me hope for the cat guardian relationship. But I'm going to ask you, what gives you hope for the cat guardian relationship? And I'm going to start with Lily, then Lucy and Michael, and just a very quick answer, please.
What gives me hope is that there are all these wonderful books out. There's a lot more material. There's a lot more educational information available now than before.
Great. Thank you, Lucy.
For me, is that more people than ever are advocating for their cat's well-being. Like the field of animal behaviour, of cat behaviour specifically, is growing, and more people want to be involved. So it's all good.
Perfect. Thank you, Michael.
I don't have much to add. I just think that overall there's more interest in cats, and of course that has its positives and negatives. But I think that there are more people interested in making their cats happy. They want to know, does my cat love me? Is my cat happy?
Because I want to ask about what brings you hope for the dog-human relationship. And I'm going to send this question to Pili first, please.
Oh, well, first of all, the fact that people love their dogs. We're really seeing a lot of that now, just globally. And the past decade, we've had more research about dogs than any part of our history. So this is really pointing us in the right direction. And so I believe in science, and I believe in the mystical, and those are coming together.
Great. Thank you. Wendy, what brings you hope?
Seeing all the different approaches that practitioners are taking now that are really weaving in understanding of trauma, understanding of attachment, understanding of neurobiology, understanding pain that's undiagnosed. There's so much wealth of information that we're getting, and like Carrie here has helped contribute to this body of knowledge too. Just so much we're learning that we can bring to bear to help.
Fantastic. Thank you. And Professor Carrie, what brings you hope?
I was thinking very similar things, really. That greater awareness and enthusiasm that dog owners seem to have now. They really are trying to do the best for their dog. They might not always get the right information, but the availability of equipment now for dogs and their owners, and educational tools such as this webinar, is just phenomenal compared to what it was 20 years ago. Just think now, 20 years ago, all of the dogs that used to walk around on thin choke chains, and now pretty much every dog you see is on a harness. And there's, so many different types of harnesses when there was basically one for a long time. It's just, there's so much more choice out there for dog owners who are really trying to do the best for their dog.
Awesome. Thank you. I think the answers to these questions, I'm asking them of every author, and I think they're really cheering people up. It's good for us all to hear it. That was Pili Bianchi, author of For the Love of Dog, The Ultimate Relationship Guide. Wendy Lyons Sunshine, author of Tender Paws, How Science-Based Parenting Can Transform Our Relationship with Dogs. And Carrie Westgarth, author of The Happy Dog Owner, Finding Health and Happiness with the Help of Your Dog. Next up, we're going to find out what brings hope to some fiction writers. Anthony Johnston, author of The Dog Sitter Detective, takes the lead. Louisa Scarr, author of Gallows Wood. And Philip Schott, author of 11 Huskies, a Dr. Bannerman vet mystery. And we actually have a question we're asking all of the writers at BarkFest that I'm going to put to all three of you now, which is we're asking everybody what brings them hope for the dog-human relationship. So I'm going to start with you, Philip. What brings you hope for the dog-human relationship?
There's just so much interest now, and dogs are no longer viewed as a child's pet or something in the backyard or in many cases something that, a creature that's has a functional value. Really the movement of cats, dogs, in particular cats also, into the center of human families is something I've been in practice 34 years now. 34 years ago, if somebody said mom or dad in reference to their dog, that would have resulted in snickers. People would have felt very self-conscious. It was very rare. It is the norm now. People understand these are not like human children, right? There is a distinction. But the change in the language speaks to a change in how we value them and how we view them. And that can only be a positive.
Yeah, I agree, definitely. Thank you. Louisa, what brings you hope for the dog-human relationship?
When I saw this question was coming, I had a long think about it. And often when you look on the internet, you get a lot of people either ranting about dogs or lots of, in the comment section, there's awful stuff, or dog trainers who are trainers. But actually, when I go out on my walk with Max, I experience the opposite. I experience, some really welcoming, friendly people who are happy to like chat and talk about their dogs. And, I know the names of the dogs. I have no idea what they're called, but I know their dogs' names. And some, some really lovely dogs and the majority are off lead, under control, off lead, and happy to play with Max. And it's a really positive interaction. So I think that gives me sort of hope for the future, in that, people are sensible. We do have common sense. We know what we're doing with our dogs. And, the majority of the interactions I have are very positive.
That's great. That's lovely. Thank you. And Anthony, what brings you hope for the dog-human relationship?
So my answer is actually very similar to Philip's and Louise's, along the same lines. One of the things one of the reasons I'm very interested in your book, Zazie, is because one of my old lurchers was a very reactive dog, like to the point that we had to muzzle him when we walked him in public. And as a result, we saw a lot of different approaches to dog training. And one of the things that gives me hope is that I've noticed in the last 5 to 10 years, negative reinforcement training is really on the outs. Like almost nobody does it anymore. And it's all about positive reinforcement training, which we found to be the answer with our dog, with both of our lurchers. In fact, positive reinforcement was so much more effective than negative reinforcement. And that gives me hope in that I think it's part of people seeing dogs as Philip said, as part of the family, as Louisa said, people getting to know their dogs. I think it's part of people just sort of accepting that dogs are dogs, but they have brains. They're not property. Like here in the UK, dogs are literally legally seen as property. Somebody steals your dog, they will, and even abuses it or something, they will be done for theft, as if it's property, not for any kind of kidnapping or anything. It's quite, there's a lot of people fighting to change that at the moment. Have been for years. So I think the trend towards positive reinforcement, I think it just sort of reinforces that attitude is changing. And I think that can only be a good thing.
And we have a question for all of our writers, which we're asking all of the authors at this festival. And it's, what brings you hope for the cat-human relationship? So we'll start with Sarah, please, if you could tell us what brings you hope for the cat-human relationship.
I think at the risk of bringing politics into this, that cats are saving democracy right now. Cats and cat ladies of all genders. I use ladies as metaphorically. I think we're starting to see that, in 2024, we used to be like, okay, humans are the be all and end all. And it's like, can we really believe that our species is like the apex of evolution? We're really starting to recognize the sentience of other beings and their autonomy. And that gives me a lot of hope.
Great. Thank you. There's some appreciation for that in the audience, typing away there. Sassafras, what brings you hope for the cat-human relationship?
I can't top that. I think, especially as the only American in here. Yes, please, saving democracy. But no, beyond that, I think that one of the things I think a lot about is, I've been involved in dog sports for 25 years, a long time, and
when I started writing professionally about dogs and cats, the response I would get when I would talk about cat enrichment or cat training or cat activities of any sort was often sort of this scoffing laughter. And people would just be like, that's ridiculous. This is just one more bizarre thing you're doing. And I don't get that response nearly so frequently anymore. And so just on a very personal level, it's something that gives me a lot of hope about cats and the ways in which I think culturally our understanding of their emotional and physical and needs is behind what we understand about dogs, but I think we're getting there, and that's been really exciting to see.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you. And Rachel, what brings you hope for the cat-human relationship?
Well, I agree with all that. And I personally think Alfie would think he could single-handedly save democracy, by the way. But everything you said, I mean, I love looking at the history of cats, and we look at the evolution. And I think that we're almost going back to when cats were a bit more worshipped and a bit more given more importance, because it seems to have dipped away a bit. You know, they were gods in Egyptian times often. And then we look at now, and I think we're getting more that understanding. We're giving them more of a voice. We really are taking time to not just say, oh, well, it's just a cat, but to properly get to know that cat. And I think that that's really the wonderful thing that I hope will continue to happen.
That was Sarah Chauncey, author of P.S. I Love You More Than Tuna, Sassafras Patterdale, author of Claw This Journal, an activity book for cats and their humans, and Rachel Wells, author of Alfie the Christmas Cat. Next up, E.B. Bartels, author of Good Grief, On Loving Pets Here and Hereafter, Sarah A. Bowen, author of Sacred Send-Offs, an animal chaplain's advice for surviving animal loss, making life meaningful and healing the planet, and Karen Fine, author of The Other Family Doctor, a veterinarian explores what animals can teach us about love, life, and mortality. And then finally, you'll hear my co-host, Christy Benson. So I've asked this question of every author at BarkFest, basically, and I've asked it about dogs, cats, or animals in general, so you can pick whichever of those seems most appropriate to you. But I would like to know what brings you hope for the animal-human relationship. And I'm going to start with Reverend Sarah Bowen, please.
The joy of seeing a squirrel bound across the yard.
I love that. Thank you. And E.B., what brings you hope?
I actually think social media brings me hope, because I joke it's the last nice place on the internet. When people post about their pet losses, it's such a wonderful space for people to reach out and connect.
Thank you. Yes. And Dr. Karen Fine?
So I feel like forums like this bring me hope, because I feel like it's more and more recognized how profound and intimate and intense these relationships can be, and how privileged we are to have them. And I feel like that's being more and more recognized, which is wonderful.
So, Christy, we've asked everyone else what gives them hope for the human-animal relationship. And I want to know for you, what gives you hope for the human-animal relationship?
I think the thing that gives me hope right now, today, is the really great work that's being done by my Indigenous colleagues on work that's actually outside of the dog world. It's on really heavy, hard topics. It's on Indian residential schools and murdered and missing Indigenous women and girls. And they're doing such good work and having such good public conversations that I think are really bringing us all up to a whole new standard of how to talk about each other and how to take care of each other and how to look at injustices and really deal with them in a head-on way. So I was just reading an article from a colleague of mine, Dr. Crystal Fraser, about Indian residential schools and the children there, and just the types of conversations and the way she was telling this story and the way that she invited dialogue. I felt really, saddened and terrified and horrified, but also just really motivated. And so I think that looking to the women around us and to the scholars around us who are doing all of these types of work, about a vast array of topics, I think that gives me hope, because I immediately thought about how do we have these types of conversations about dog training? How do we have these conversations about the bonds that we have between, the animals in our care and the animals that we have brought and turned into pets that live with us in our houses? So I guess that's sort of circuitous, but when you asked me that question, that's the headspace I was in, and it did really seem to come together for me.
Fantastic. I love it. Thank you. Thanks for listening. I would love to know what gives you hope for the human-dog or human-cat relationship. So please send me a text message or an email and let me know. Thank you. Thank you for listening to the Positive Posting Conversation. If you liked this episode, please subscribe to the show and write us a review via your podcast app. For the show notes, visit companionanimalpsychology.com. This show was produced by Zazie Todd. The music is Melody from Paris by Studio Le Bousse. See you next time.